Hello again, everybody. So tonight I'm gonna demonstrate a little exothermic welding. I've got a couple pieces of copper 4/0 stranded bare, and it's something that's kind of not as common. So I feel like since I've done so many this past job that maybe I'll take the way that I do it and my methods and tools that I use and demonstrate for you guys how I do things, and maybe it'll help you out on your job. Maybe you're just curious on how it works. So I'm gonna get some things going, and give me 1 second to set up. This is my rigid box. This is where I keep all my exothermic welding material in. It's got a gasket in it so it keeps the moisture out. I guess that's a little essential when you've got gunpowder that you need to keep dry. So if you haven't done this before, some things that you're going to need out the gate: a torch. Hammer is something that I guess you could use. Really, you could use a rock if you had to. Metal bristle brush, fine. I got a couple new ones that haven't been used. This is for later. I'll explain what that is, but you're gonna need something that makes a spark. You can use a lighter, even though it's not recommended. Sometimes I just use the torch. It's just easier from a distance. But I'll show you my kit, just in case y'all are curious to what you may need. I figured all that out already. I've made at least a handful, not a couple dozen, exothermic welds here recently, and this is just a clamp, the handle for the actual graphite welds, and we'll get to that in a minute. This is an igniter. I mean, you can tell they've been used. I've modified this one a little bit to get into the weld better. Wire, metal, bristle brushes are definitely going to be needed. Ball peen hammer, some welding gloves. You could probably get by without them for a little while, but once you see how hot these get, you're gonna want some, especially for your safety. Graphite molds. This is a 4/0 bare copper to steel beam. So if you're doing a vertical mold, this is what you would use. We won't be doing that today. Today we are going to do. Let me open it up. I keep a little piece of cardboard showing what the mold does inside of it. Just a little user-friendly tool. So this right here is what we're going to be doing. It's an end-to-end exothermic connection. So I'll save this over here for later. I definitely don't put that back in this mold until it is cooled all the way down. This will get really hot. First thing you want to do in this process is make sure that the application that you're going to be using, you have the right molds for and the right powders for. We're going to be doing an end-to-end mold, 4/0 stranded copper. So I've got, every one of these has a little plate on it. We're using Burndy weld. See if I can get the focus in right there. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it says right there 4/0 stranded, run and tap 4/0 stranded, which means I'm technically connecting two pieces of 4/0. And underneath that you'll see a cart number. Let's see if I can get that to focus right there. It's cart number 90. So that is the cartridge that we're going to use. You notice I have several different cartridge numbers in here. We've got cartridge 90, we've got 115, 150, and 200. These are all for the different molds, different metals, different applications. The one that we needed is 90, so we'll dig down in here. That's this one right here. And inside this case, hold on 1 second, let me set my phone down. Once you open this case, to verify, right here on the cover, there's 10 90 standard welds. I've removed one already for the purposes of this video. This is what the cartridges are going to look like. They're full of powder. When we actually load the weld here in a little while, I'm going to show you the process of this and how important it is for the starter powder in the bottom. So They're going to come with let's see if I can get these steel disc. These little discs right here actually are very essential. This is one of the key elements of this entire process. You want to make sure you have one of these. You'll know why here in a little while when we get to that part. So just to recap, so far we're going to be doing a 4/0 stranded end-to-end exothermic weld, or CAD weld, or thermite weld, however you want to classify it. Tools that we're going to need: some welding gloves, just because of how hot this is going to get. You got a igniter. You could use the igniter. They're not the greatest. I just use my torch sometimes. You got wire brushes, ball peen hammer. I got a waterproof kit to keep everything in, just to help with the moisture. You know anything about gunpowder, moisture, gunpowder, just it don't work. This is plastic, so you do want to be sure that these molds are all the way cooled down before you put them back up. All right, let's get to it. All right, so got everything set up. Since I am doing this inside, I made sure to get down on this concrete floor just to keep everything safe. Try to lay everything out so you can see it one more time. This is about everything that I need to have with me before I get started, and that's verifying that the mold that I'm using is the connection that I'm going to make. So, same mold, here we go. Processes. This is a retention clip. It keeps the graphite molds together when you're not using them. They are rather fragile, so basically this just kind of holds tension inside to keep them together and keep them from opening up in the case or wherever you may store them. You want to set this aside and save it for later. You will need this to put it back up. Okay, so starting powder here comes self-explanatory, but this will burn off after about 3 uses. So open the mold up, no imperfections. Now we're going to separate the mold. This is a mold that separates, I guess, I don't know how to really tell you, but this way instead of the other way. Every mold comes different. First thing we need to do is, because of where these were stored and the temperatures, is sweat the graphite mold and the copper that I'm going to be bonding together. So let me find 2 pieces that I like here. I like these 2 right there. So I'm going to be taking this end right here, somewhere kind of in the middle. This one right here, somewhere kind of in the middle. And basically I want to sweat the moisture from here to at least 4 inches past it. What moisture likes to do is, when the exothermic welding process starts, it gets to a very high rate temperature really quickly. So if there's moisture in here, it tries to leave, and when it does that, it causes basically molten lava to fly out of the cracks and creases of this. And if you're close by, you could understand why that'd be something you want to avoid. So we want to get all the moisture out of this first, and I'm going to set this up like this so I can demonstrate that. Make sure all your gunpowder and everything is clear when you start to sweat them. All right, here we go. Get our torch ready. What I like to do is start with the mold. I want to heat up directly where any copper is going to be sitting. And it's hard to tell in the video, but you can kind of see the moisture running out of the graphite. Maybe it's hard to see in this video, but it'll run right out. I want to get this up to a temperature to where it boils every bit of the moisture out of it. You only have to do this on the first mold. Well, the first CAD weld, I guess, or exothermic weld. Because once you light the gunpowder the first time, this thing gets so hot that it will have zero moisture in it the rest of the day if you have a bunch to do. So the first one's the most important. So take your time, be patient with it. And the copper, it's easy to see. You start it on the tip. See if I can get down here where y'all can visually see that moisture run out of it. Yeah, it still may be hard to see. Whenever you run a torch over it though, you can basically watch it run down the copper. Now, this is Bare Bright, brand new copper, so I know that it has no dirt in it. But if you're running in a ditch and doing this outside in the weather and it's been sitting, you definitely want to spend some extra time cooking the moisture out of this copper. And then also take your wire bristle brush right here and clean this copper. You want to brush it hard, you want to brush it in the direction of the lines and brush as much dirt as you can out of it. You don't want anything to cause the weld to be default or to blow back on you. So I think my copper here is good. Make sure I got my weld heated up, moisture driven out of it. Triple check this one. Almost out of butane. Okay. I don't want to bore y'all with my constant heating, so. Okay. Now that we got the moisture out of it, metal's clean, I'm going to move these out of the way. I'm going to actually use gloves because these are kind of warm, if not hot. Depends on how long you cook them. I'm going to put them together. Put them together. Make sure I squeeze them real good. So these holes right here are important. This one, that's a 4-aught outside diameter of your copper wire. So that's where this will be coming in later. But these outside holes, the ones that line up on the outside edge here, that's where this comes in handy. So this is what opens and closes your mold for you when this thing gets to the temperature of the sun here in a moment. So basically, these are going to line up. The ones with the swivel brackets that compression in, they're going to be on top. They go into that side hole right here. So we're going to line the bottom ones up with the holes. Drop it right in. Let's see if I can get it lined up here. And they don't always cooperate, so you gotta play with the handles and get them to cooperate with you. Let's see if I can get them lined up. I'm gonna need 2 hands, so I'm gonna pause this. Alright, I got that in. So next you wanna line this up with the holes on the side. And what these do is they thread in to the bar that you just inserted to the graphite mold, and they put outward tension on it so that you don't damage the mold itself. So you're going to put them not too tight but snug on either side. That way you can open and close this mold without it moving too much on you. Okay, so now I'm going to open this. The mold will open up so that I can remove the weld later. So this is a closed position, sealed all the way. All right, so next what I want to do is I want to open this up. Okay. And usually on a level surface is what you want to be working with, but I know in the field it's not always ideal. You're going to work with what you got and do the best you can. However, I'm going to go ahead with one hand and get this one lined up over here in the middle. See if I can show y'all. It's a good angle. I'm going to put that in the middle, and then I'm going to take the other one and put it right against it, and I'm going to close this mold. Okay, so basically I want that as close to center as possible, and I'm going to slowly close the mold because I don't want anything to move. You can always look down. I don't really have a light in there to show you, but you want that to be centered up. You can see that I'm a little off, but I'm pretty close. My right side needs to come in just a little bit, right there. I'm going to close this down. She's locked in place. I'm centered up. Got a good ceiling there. Okay, so this is what you've got in the grand scheme of things. Usually they come, you can get this sealer, it's a putty, and you would put it around the copper here and around the copper down here, and then it keeps from any blowout. I don't have any of that on a brand new mold like this. It's usually not something that you need to worry about too much, but after like 10 to 15 uses of this mold, it's going to get a little loose, and that's when stuff's going to start spilling out. You're going to want that mold. These are only good for like, don't quote me on it, but I believe 50, 75, maybe some brands are 100. After that, the mold is pretty much needs to be replaced. They're like 99 bucks, so it's not going to break the bank if you're doing a lot of these. They'll pay for themselves. Not to mention that exothermic connection is one of the best connections that you can get. It's a maintenance-free connection. You can bury it, cover it up, concrete it, leave it where you want, stick it to a beam. There's so many applications that you can use this. It's great. So next, now that we've got those in, what we want to do is double check if you've forgotten your tag on the back of the mold. If you remember, mine was a 90 shot. I've already took the liberty of getting one ready. So remember that little steel cap we talked about? This is it right here. See that hole? If I poured my gunpowder in right now, or I guess my thermite powder, it's gonna go all the way down to that hole, and I'm gonna ruin this entire mold. So that's what this is for. You just drop it in here, and she'll sit right inside this little groove. Now, not only does this melt and become almost like solder that bonds all this together later with the thermite and the copper itself, but it keeps my powder from going in. So my powder will fill up in this chamber. So I'm going to open my lid. I'm going to insert that powder. So I poured some in already. I just want to show you all this part coming up. Once I get most of it in there, I'm going to be left with a little bit packed in. Now depending on the brand, this could come out as a plastic bag with the shot in there, but this is the starter powder. Let's see if I can focus in on that. It's kind of packed in into 4 little sections. You want to put 3/4 of this on top and put 1/4 of it in that hole right there to start the whole thing later. So I'm going to tap it, kind of break it up, make sure you're getting it all loose in there, still kind of tight. Then you want to pour 3/4 right on top. That last quarter, like I told you, it's going to go right inside this hole. Okay, now this is pretty much trash. Don't need that anymore. Alright, this is the part where it gets crazy. It's also the most fun. get your welding gloves. Make sure to get my left hand. Put them on. I'm gonna grab your starter. Now, like I said, these don't always work out the best, so it is what it is. We're gonna give it a shot. I might end up having to cheat and use my torch, but I'm gonna try to give y'all the most realistic example as I possibly can. This, when you pull the trigger fast, throws a spark. I need to throw that spark in that hole. So here we go. With these gloves on, this is absolutely the worst idea. I'm gonna try one more time. Okay, so I'm not a big fan of these. I'm gonna show you the way that I do it. So out in the field, working quick, don't really have time for all that stuff, so I'll just use the torch and give her a little hit. There you go. Now you can tell, less frustration, way faster, same results. See that? That is literally a flame coming out of the center. That is a completed exothermic weld. You want to give it at least 30 seconds to cool down, especially if you're in a warmer area. If it's cold outside, probably 15 seconds realistically. During this time, you want to be going ahead and getting your hammer, wire brushes all ready. You can go ahead and start kind of, sometimes this is easier to scrub off when it's hot, so I'll work on the top. You can see that the tags are already starting to burn off. 2 more of these and that's gone. She'll scrape right out of there. But you want to clean your entire mold. It's important that you do almost like a brand new mold every time you do these, because one imperfection could cause an injury or a bad weld, and sometimes you don't have time for that kind of stuff. So take your time when cleaning these before each weld, okay? Now this is going to be extremely hot. Never touch it with bare hands. These gloves are not even something good to touch them with, so I'm going to put on my welding glove for this next little part right here, just to open the lid and show you down inside, okay? So down inside of here, what you're going to see is all the lag. The slag, the goop, the gunk. All this comes off. It's what you're cleaning from the mold before you do the next one. You can see it kind of just easily brushes right off, but that's because it's a fine wire bristle brush. So you're gonna take the time to clean these later. So now for the fun part. We're gonna open the mold up. Let me get the side view here. Hang on one second. Okay, had to remove my gloves so I could actually work the phone here, but when you open these handles up right here, it's going to cause this mold to open just like I showed you earlier before. But you want to go real nice and easy so I can get a good visual for you guys. Alright, so because of this was the first mold that we did, or the first weld we did with that mold, that's a beautiful weld right there, guys. Check it out. Alright, what you have right here, if you open this back up, all that stuff right there, that's what you're cleaning off for the next one. And you take a brush, start scraping in here, this stuff just falls right out. It takes no time to do it, but you want to make sure you do it right and you do a good job with it. So I'm not going to go into processes of cleaning these. It's pretty self-explanatory. Take your wire brush, scrub it to make it look like you did before you used it. Basically it. Alright? Sometimes though, you see this here? This is the sludge, the slag, that goopy stuff I was talking about. Sometimes this is still sitting right here when you break the weld off. That's when the hammer comes in. Give it a little tap. Check it out. You can take a wire brush and clean it off. you got it. That's it. And right now, this thing is, we're 12 inches down, and I can't even hold that with my bare hands. So you definitely want to be using welding gloves when handling any of this, especially after you weld it together. But right here we have it. You seen what that looked like before. She's solid. It's actually a beautiful weld, guys. I hope this video was helpful. Hope you enjoyed it. If any of you guys out there do things differently or have some cool tips, let me know. I'm new to this as well. I mean, I guess I was new. I've done about 30 and I've got about 7,000 ahead of me. So more to come. Just thought it was interesting and I should share. Good luck.